Finland's Prime Minister Sanna Marin tendered her government's resignation to the country's president following the election of a new parliament. Those elections saw her party lose control to a new right-leaning coalition. Finland's parliament is unicameral. It's comprised of 200 legislators. Parliamentary elections are held every 4 years. The new parliament will hold its first meeting on April 11th, according to an announcement from the president's office Thursday. Finland formally joined NATO on Wednesday, ending the country's policy of neutrality followed since the end of World War II. The country borders Russia's Murmansk, Karelia, and Leningrad regions. Leena Hietanen is a journalist based in Helsinki, Finland. She's the author of 2 books, Estonia's Cold War and The Diary of an Anti-Fascist from Estonian Apartheid to the Ukrainian Civil War. We spoke with her via Skype from Helsinki on Thursday. Leena, thank you for joining us today. And I had a conversation yesterday with a colleague of yours, Petri, and I assume you've had an opportunity to hear this. And I'd like to pick up from there. We spoke yesterday kind of how Finland joining NATO fits into sort of an historical situation and some of the implications for Finland and the people of Finland. But I'd like to look more at the regional aspects of it with you. I know that you've been studying it in Estonia, for example, this phenomenon of the rehabilitation of Nazism and how that fits into the whole geopolitical structure.
Well, I would say so that Finnish elite, we always join the enemies of Russia when there happens this possibility. That Finland has never avoided a world war if there has been such. Like in the Second World War, we were allies for Hitler. And now again, we are joining NATO when NATO is having war with Russia in Ukraine. So that we are like, our elite is so fond of the West that we don't like count our own what we should do, but we take this position of the enemy of Russia. And that is something which I am very, disappointed again, that we do it again the second time we choose the side of enemy of Russia. That makes me sad. And also that this is the rehabilitation of fascism in the sense that Finland has never been Nazification has happened in Finland. Because after the Second World War, our leaders, they were condemned as war criminals. But, after 8 years, they didn't serve the whole sentence. In Finland, nobody was hanged, like in Norway, Kisling and etc. That we Finns, we took them more like heroes. It didn't take long before they became like national heroes. They are nowadays very popular in Finland, those Hitler's allies. They are all rehabilitated. And again, like today, our ex-prime minister Sanna Marin, she was really fond of this Cuban fascist regime. She was the biggest supporter of them. And she is social democrat. Our social democrats were on the side of Hitler, and today they are the biggest fans of NATO and Cuban fascist regime.
This is a similar phenomenon to the rehabilitation of Stepan Bandera, for example, in Ukraine. And is this something that prevails across the region in Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, etc.?
Yes, absolutely sure. This is something, I'm so astonished that this goes through to the Western world, that how is America able to support this revival of fascism, this horrible, masquerade of Hitler's, this is springtime for Hitler, the second edition.
Yes.
So that how are you able to do this? Victoria Nuland, you're Jewish foreign minister, deputy foreign ministers, and so on. But this goes through everywhere in the Baltic states and in Finland, because in Finland, for instance, our history does not tell us that it was wrong to be on the Hitler's side. We are still thinking that we chose better than those who were on the side of Stalin. That in that sense, Finns, we are lacking this moral compass. Which one is a good guy and which one is a bad guy? That we are thinking that Stalin is even worse than Hitler, and that is the same nowadays in the whole of Eastern Europe. And I really, wonder that because there is this book, Pulitzer Prize book, this Hitler's Willing Executors, that all the Jews they were killed in the Eastern Europe, in these countries, Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania, and so on, in the Baltics. Estonia was the first Judenfrei. So that you are dealing with the same people again, or the same part of the world again. That who are the most Russophobic, who are the most eager to join NATO, and these bloodthirsty warmongers like Polish and the Baltic states, and now Finland is joining them. I am really ashamed of Finland of belonging to this group. But again, this Nazi rehabilitation. This is not only It's a bigger question, this NATO, because how do Americans find themselves here? Because, for instance, Anne Applebaum, for instance, that NATO is not only fighting against Russia, but also against Soviet Union still. And they are they want to destroy this legacy of Soviet Union as a first international labor movement country. So this is not only against Russia, but also against the leftist movement. And for instance, in Europe, we are totally lacking nowadays the leftist parties. And for instance, as I said, like in Finland, our social democrats and our leftist parties, they are the biggest supporters of this Kiovan fascist regime. So
yeah, we have the same phenomenon here. I mean, the Democratic Party is supposedly the left party here. I mean, it's a joke, but that's, comparable to Social Democrats. And they are the most aggressive warmongering party. Donald Trump is supposedly a fascist threat, for example. That's how the Democrats refer to him. And while he was president, the war games with Russia and China stopped. The rhetoric was toned down, and they attempted to negotiate peace and better relations. Certainly no escalation and no war. And then Biden got elected, the Democrat, and almost immediately we're at war with Russia.
But that's really, incredible, because I am putting my hope on Trump here in Europe, because, you never know. Trump can even, pull out America from NATO. That you never know, because he could do things like that, because for instance Finland is now joining NATO at times when NATO might be a sinking ship already. Anyhow, the West is going to lose the war. What does it mean when Russia is winning and when West is losing? But I am thinking that Russia won't stop before it goes to the borders of 1997 to this NATO enlargement. Russia has said it already before this special military operation began. But okay, back to this thing that of this your Democratic Party. I believe that the world was led by Moscow Communist Party during the socialist period, until the Soviet Union collapsed. All the leftist parties in Europe, they were doing these healthcare reforms and educational reforms. You Americans, poor Americans, you still, miss this healthcare reform. You never got that far.
That's right.
But our progressives were all going after Moscow Communist Party. And nowadays, the leading party in the world, in the Western world, is your Democrats. But I don't see that they are bringing such a good progressive things like the Communist Party did.
Right.
We anyhow cut much more than we are getting from your Democratic Party. We are getting a destruction. We are getting the totally foolish things with this gender agenda. Our government was this gender agenda government, and now we are in NATO. This is horrible. You are bringing us horrible things.
Yeah, there was when the Soviet Union was providing housing, education, health care, and all of that. For the first time from a state for all of the citizens, it was an example of an alternative model that posed a threat to the West, and it forced accommodations to workers' demands for those same things. As soon as it was gone, it was removed as an alternative, and as a matter of fact, simultaneously with that, those things began to be taken away. The so-called safety nets were removed. We got rid of welfare as we knew it. Tuition goes up, and now people have student debt. Healthcare goes down. Pensions go down. Retirement age goes up, etc. That's the environment that we're living in now.
Well, that's very true. And but I would say even that this NATO ideology, this ideological capitalism, that all the riches, they have to belong to the rich people. That is like the main core in this NATO enlargement and what NATO is doing here in Europe against Russia. They want to get the Russian riches. But also, like, the horrible thing is that this American narrative, you are really clever. These Hollywood manuscriptures and so on, they are not for, vain, rich people and so on, famous in the world, because this narrative, what America is pushing through in all of the West media, it's really, destructive and, horrible how it destroys things in Europe and all around the world also. That in that sense, this leadership of Democratic Party is not doing good for the world.
Agreed. Thank you very much, Leena, for your time, and we hope to speak with you again soon.
Thank you.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.